So for those who don't know me, I lead the recruiting team at Highnote. And a fact just to kick us off is at Highnote, our leadership team is 50% female. And today I'm really looking forward to all of us to learn how our leadership team at Highnote is really shaping the future for female leadership in tech. And topics that we're going to touch on today, but are not limited to, are balancing startup culture with home life, overcoming imposter syndrome, and really just talking about dealing with challenges of entering into tech for the first time as a female. Those are just a few of the topics. I do want to preface that no topic is off limits today. And the whole point of us making a fireside chat is to really have a real discussion. And all of our female leaders are going to share stories. We're going to open it up to the audience to ask questions and comment throughout. So please do use the chat function on your screen throughout. I'll be taking a look at them and I can surface to our panel. Now, before we move into the panel, I would like to welcome a special guest. Hey, John.
Hey.
So everyone, this is John McElwain, Highnote CEO and co-founder. So before we kick off our panel and really fireside discussion, John, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about why Women's History Month is so important to you personally and for Highnote, and really what Breaking the Bias means to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. And hello, everyone. First off, I just want to thank our esteemed panelists for their time today, and really to welcome everyone in the audience for what I think is going to be a really interesting, open, candid, and an informative discussion. So really looking forward to it. But I wanted to start off with maybe a quick personal story from my background before we get going, because I think it's relevant, and we're all friends here, so why not? So here I go. So I grew up with both my parents working full time, and my mom was in politics and actually became the very first elected female county commissioner in our county. And as it turns out, she was only the second female county commissioner in Ohio at that time. And I was really young and just naturally thought that all women could be county commissioners or governors or senators or even the president. Why would it be otherwise? And it was just normal for me to assume that. And as I grew up and I realized that that's not always the case, and it's become very important to me, coming from a family I have two older sisters and three daughters, that I need to be intentional about supporting women in their professional careers and really making opportunities exist. And at Highnote, I think one of our core values here is intentional inclusion. And that means really being purposeful in how to foster diversity of thought and how to embrace gender diversity at all levels, not just thinking about it or talking about it, but really doing something about it. And so I'm really proud, and Katie mentioned this in the opening, that our leadership team here at Highnote is comprised of 50% women, and many of them are on the panel today, so you're going to hear from them. I think overall in the company, we're right around 40% females at Highnote, and I think that's pretty amazing given that we're primarily a technology and product company. And as a result, we've had to try really hard to attract, recruit, provide opportunities for women at all levels. And a shout out to Katie, who runs all of our recruiting efforts, for her amazing work and her team's work in this area. I'd like us to be at 50% in sort of gender mix over time. So, and I think we can get there, but we have work to do in continuing to build on the progress to date. So WHM, Women's History Month at Highnote does not end tomorrow because we start a new month. We love the focus and the attention of this event, but other events, and are super committed to, I would say, embedding diversity into our culture every month, because that's what it takes, I think, to build a great company and a great culture. So with that, I'd just like to thank Katie and the panel again for having this discussion and sharing their experiences. And I'm really looking forward personally to listening and learning with all of you in the audience. And thanks for attending. And Katie, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, John, for getting us started. Now it's going to be time for the main event. I'm going to welcome our Highnote female leadership team to join us. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to walk through the agenda before we go through introductions. So first, we'll introduce everyone on the panel. We will spend the bulk of our time today with panel discussion. But again, fireside chat, no question is off limits, and we want to hear from the audience. So please use the chat function throughout. And we'll probably finish with some extra Q&A. Sorry, I'm wearing a bit of a shadow here. But to kick off introductions, I will hand it over to Jane.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jane. I'm head of finance. I joined Highnote last July, and I consider myself a veteran now. I manage accounting and financial reporting and pricing functions for Highnote. And before joining Highnote, I had 20 years of professional experience leading different finance functions, mostly in financial industry. Some companies I have worked at include Chase, PayPal, and Capital One. I'm a mother of two naughty boys. I'm thrilled to be on the panel today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jody. I'm sorry. I'm cracking up from Jing's naughty kids. I lead our product team here at Highnote. I've been in product management for a number of years, met Ken and John while I was at Braintree. A few other tidbits about my history. I was also a special education teacher for a while, and I'm also from Ohio. And so John's story about politics really touched my heart because I have a lot of friends in Ohio politics that really are pushing for women in Ohio politics. So this is a little bit about me.
Hi, my name is Elaine Teo. I lead the engineering team here at Highnote. Been here about 6 months. It's been an amazing 6 months. It's been wonderful working with the awesome team at Highnote, and looking forward to the many things we're going to do together. Prior to Highnote, I was at other startups, also larger companies like Oracle, PeopleSoft, Vodafone. Also, I was at OpenTable prior to that. I have a 11-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old puppy. I'm not sure which is more work, the puppy or the kid, but they're both a lot of work. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Patty. I manage program delivery and execution. Prior to joining Highnote, I managed TPM teams at Salesforce, Lending Club, and Flexport. And at home, I have a freshman in high school as well as a junior in high school.
Great. Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm the COO at Highnote, and I joined Highnote back in September, and I'm having a really great time. I've had a long and very varied career. I've been at big companies, the likes of Verizon. I've been at small companies, including a couple of startups. Spent most of my career in various forms of technology, and I'm really looking forward to this panel discussion. Ooh. On my personal side, I have 3 fantastic children. 2 are in college and 1 just graduated from college, and they're amazing. And I also have 2 puppies, and they are a lot of work.
Thanks, everyone. All right, so let's dig in on some topics. What I first would love to chat with everyone about, it's a topic that comes up a lot for me when I'm recruiting and talking to candidates, and in Highnote in general, I talk to a lot of our employees about this. It has to do with balancing startup life with home life. And at Highnote, we are a Series A startup, and we're building our platform from the ground up. And we're all really in this together. And it's a fast moving culture, exciting. We're very execution focused, and we're all rowing in the same direction. And it's a really fun experience, I have to say. But I do want to chat a little bit about how all of you balance the Highnote startup culture with home life, with kids and family. Patty, I know you and I have chatted about this before, so I'd love to hear your take and what works for you.
Thanks, Katie. I've worked at startups before, tech startups before, so I'm used to the Highnote pace. But the Highnote pace is definitely very exhilarating, and every day there's something new and challenging. I think the key is to learn how to prioritize well and focus during the time block and really deliver your best work. Like I mentioned, I have 2 teenagers in high school, and during COVID, I was working from home. So I was able to attend some of my kids' home games for tennis and track. And then I could come back to finish work in the evenings. And I think it worked out really well.
Thank you, Patty. As a mother of 2, I totally relate to what Patty just said, but I want to share a few tips that worked for me too. The first one is to really proactively set the boundaries between work and life. That boundary used to be pretty clear cut before. About 10 years ago, you went to office 9 to 5. At the end of the day, you shut down the computer, went back home, all time's yours. Nowadays, that line has been super blurred. Thanks to the modern technology, I find that the most frequently used apps on my smartphone are work-related. Slack, Gmail, Outlook, Zoom. I find myself frequently talking to my kids, say, hey, give me 1 more minute. I need to make a quick phone call. I need to send a quick message. But before you know it, all those quick things quickly add up. COVID made it even worse. So now you don't not only have all the apps on your computer, you have the workstation right there in your house. And it's so easy to just spend another 30 minutes, 60 minutes in there. So you have your time during the weekend and you have it afterward, but you feel that you constantly work. That's a really bad feeling. The technique that really worked for me is to clearly set up the boundary myself. I need to take control back into my hand. I need to set the limits, like say Monday, Friday, 5 to 7, that's my cook and dinner time. Tuesday to Thursday, 8:30 to 9, best story time with kids. 11, try to go to bed. So usually setting an alarm works too. So another technique really worked for me is to make a plan. So I'm a planning person. Those people who work with me knows me about that. So I'm a big fan of a calendar. I like to put everything on my calendar, including work and personal activities. That really shows what I need to do by when. And I don't know about you guys, I'm greedy, and oftentimes I find I overestimate my capability to multitasking. But when I laid out the total plan in a piece of paper, I realized I really don't have that much time to finish everything I want to finish, or the way I allocate my time is not really aligned with my priorities. So that's really give me the chance to trim down less important activities or rearrange my events. So one last special tip. Try to avoid setting big deadlines on Monday. That's basically the invitation to work over the weekend. I really like to set the deliverables on Friday so that I can enjoy a carefree weekend.
Those are great tips, Patty and Jing. I only have a couple to add to that. I think what I found worked for me was kind of blocking off your calendar for dropping the kids off at school, picking them up, feeding the dogs. So making sure that you actually set aside time to do what you need to do at home, right? Also, if you have like special routines that you do with your family, definitely try to keep those routines. Like in my family, Friday night is movie night, so I try to make sure that my Friday nights are free so that I can spend time watching some random movie. And then last but not least, if I have to, I usually try to catch up on work at night.
What's been the best movie lately, Elaine?
Oh, so my daughter wants to watch all the Marvel movies because her friends at school have been talking about them, and she hadn't watched Avengers or any of those movies. So we started from I don't know if you guys know, but there are a lot of Marvel movies. So we started from Captain America, like the very first one, and so we're working our way up. There are a lot of them.
So it's a journey.
Yep.
I love that.
These are something interesting. I'm the only panelist without kids, and I do have a naughty dog that people often see during my meetings. But one of the things I will say, and I'm sure people with kids have this already, I ask for a lot of help. So I think I just realized that I love work and I love what I'm doing, but I also need help kind of picking up the pieces. And so I don't know about other panelists, but sometimes like having someone else walk the dog is actually okay, or giving the medicine during my meetings is totally okay. And so I found myself just asking for help where I normally wouldn't. And it's amazing because it's worked out for me pretty well. Like I don't have the stress, it's someone else's responsibility.
Yeah, I can pile on to that. My children are obviously a little bit older, but I've certainly had an awful lot of help along the way. I've always had jobs where I traveled a lot. And, I always used to think about it as it's less of a balance and more of an integration, and trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to integrate my work, which I love, in with my family and my home life, which I also love. Help was always key. And also, what I found was being really open with my kids, even when they were very young, about the importance of my work to me. I've always firmly believed I'm a better mother because I work. And so really being able to make sure that the time I spend with them is quality time, and fitting in the work. If it meant coming back to work, as you said, Elaine, after after they went to bed in the evening, I did a lot of that, particularly when they were young. So keep the faith.
I love this. Even just like openly talking about work-life balance makes me feel better. And like sharing tips, Jing, a lot of your tips, I was like furiously typing. How do I not know these? So thanks, team, for being open and sharing and I think like it's not a one size that fits all. At Highnote, of course, we have a lot on our plates, but we are very flexible, right? It's about, yes, we're getting results, but of course we have a home life too. And I think that we've done a really good job of just providing a flexible work environment where, when you do need to go out, pick up your kids or run an errand, you're able to do that. And so that's one thing I really like about the Highnote culture. All right, let's move on from work-life balance. And I want to talk about navigating through imposter syndrome. So, as a reminder for everyone, imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing that you're not as competent as others may perceive you to be. And it really hits home to me when you put it simply, which is imposter syndrome is the experience of feeling like you're a phony, like you don't belong where you are, and you only got there because of luck. And the interesting part about imposter syndrome is it can affect anyone, no matter your skill level, your degree of expertise, or your work background. And it's really common. I know I've run into it many times in my career, and I don't think that we talk about it enough. And to my point earlier, I feel like just sharing stories of us all as females in tech about things we've gone through and talking about it, bringing it to the surface is just helpful for all of us. And Nicola, I know you've worked at very large corporations. You've also worked at smaller to mid-sized companies, and you've been through a lot of different experiences. And I know you and I have chatted about imposter syndrome before. So I'm wondering if you'd be open to sharing a story or two of when you felt like you were an imposter.
So I'm happy to do that. And fortunately, I have so many stories about imposter syndrome and feeling like an imposter. I could probably go on all night about it. It is one of those things, and I'm glad there's now a label around it, because for a long time I think I always felt like I was alone and the only person that felt this way. I think sharing a story is probably the best way to really articulate kind of how it manifested itself, at least for me. And some ways in which I think, I don't think I'm beyond imposter syndrome, but I think I handle it better. Pretty early on in my career, I was working at a pre-revenue startup, very, very well funded, very, very technical. It was a global satellite telecommunications company. I had been hired in because I knew somebody, and I was working in the IT business systems development and deployment organization. There were 300 developers that we had writing code, and my job was to deploy these business systems into our partner companies in India, Russia, and China. I didn't know the first thing about IT, like not at all. And I'm a quick study, and I can talk a good game, and I can fake it a little bit. But this was very technical, and I was working with all of these developers, and a lot of the time I didn't even know what they were talking about. And so I would be in these meetings, and I would always sort of preface an observation or an idea, or weigh in, and I would always start with, I know I'm not a coder, I know I don't really understand what you do, but blah blah blah. And my boss, who was, Stanford double E and Lord only knows what else, and had founded a number of different companies, larger than life, truthfully, a little bit afraid of him, became a mentor, is still a mentor to me today. I remember him taking me aside one day, and he said, "You have to stop." He said, "You have got to stop telling everybody you don't know how to code." He's like, because the only person who knows that you don't know how to code and don't maybe know what they're talking about is you. So stop. He said, "I didn't hire you to code. I've got 300 developers. I hired you for the other things that you're doing. So stop telling everybody." Great advice. Really great advice. Stuck with me to this day. Every time I'm about to apologize or talk about something I don't know, I think I have Randy's words in my ear. But it doesn't go away. And I think the difference is, now when I feel like an imposter, which frankly is not all that infrequent, I let the internal voices stay as internal voices. And I also let the work that I love to do just kind of absorb and consume me, so that I just do what I know how to do, even if there's a little voice saying you don't belong, you don't belong. Another example is being in a boardroom, or being called in to meet with the CEO of a Fortune 15 company for the first time. Talk about not feeling like I belonged and feeling like an imposter. But I had something they needed. And just really just being able to think about the work instead of thinking about my place in the work allowed me to perform at my best in those scenarios.
Thanks for sharing that, Nicola. I think it also, again, is so interesting that you have those stories from early in your career, but like you just said, it never goes away. And I think sometimes I have to remind myself also of like what is fact and what is fiction.
Yep.
when it comes to imposter syndrome. And, just remember that you're in the role that you're in for a reason. There was not like a mistake. It's because you are experienced, you know how to influence, and like you are the subject matter expertise. So I always sometimes have to kind of remind myself of that.
And I think also I totally agree with that. And I think, you are where you are. You got there, and just delivering and doing what you do, instead of focusing on, was it a mistake? Why did I end up here? They don't know that I'm actually not competent. Whatever those voices, because they are little voices in our heads. Just really buckling down and just doing the work. You're there, play the part.
Exactly. And I also have to touch on when you were saying the sentence of like you would apologize at the beginning. I took a course, this was like last year during the pandemic, and I actually had to do with voice coaching, and it had to do with tone and how you start your sentence. And the first few words in a sentence are the most powerful to catch everyone's attention and set the tone and set the influence. So it is just a reminder for all of us that, when you are speaking at the beginning, like having that confidence of, what you're talking about will influence everyone in the room. And those first few words that you say are crucial.
Yeah. Great advice.
It was an interesting course I took, I will have to say, but I learned a lot. What about everyone else in the room? Has anyone else here dealt with imposter syndrome?
I actually have a story that I think I have told a few people that have joined Highnote. So when I was looking at I actually wasn't looking for a new job before I joined Highnote. I knew somebody that was recruiting at the time, and they reached out to me and said, like, you should check out Highnote. And I was like, why not? I'd love to know what these old Braintree people are doing and in payments. And so I had a conversation with Ken, who is one of the co-founders and CTO, about the job. And he was talking about card issuance. And I was looking at him and I said, like, and I had done my research, don't get me wrong. I came prepared, and I said, Ken, I think you should hire a different product manager. I really think you should go hire someone who knows about card issuance. You're going to be more successful. I promise. Like, I only know about payment processing and acquiring, and this is a whole different ballgame. And he's like, no, you can do this. You can do this job. And I think one of the things that I can say is, like, I walked in with imposter syndrome, even though I had done all the research, and I can't thank Ken enough for being able to say, like, no, you can do this job. You really can. And believing in me. And I mean, that is something that has stayed with me as in the first few months, I was like, I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm still confused about card issuance, and I'm trying to understand. And I think just that investment in me of, like, yes, you can do this, I think was so important. And a lot of the times too, I try to, especially with new employees, I mean, we've hired amazing people at Highnote, and I try to make sure that they know, like, we hired you for a reason. You are awesome at what you do. And continuing to encourage people, whether that's women or anyone else, and because I think that sometimes you can't see the imposter syndrome that someone may have, and someone's coming in and trying to learn, and they're new to things. And I think that encouragement and constant encouragement has been something that has always been in the back of my head, especially during I've never joined a startup before. Like, I'm having a bunch of new experiences, and that's the reason I joined. But the encouragement has been able to help fuel, like, okay, I can do this, and kind of that self-talk that's happened. So yeah, it's been a great experience, but it did take a little nudge for sure, past what I was feeling.
And Jody, I have a question. How is everything going now at Highnote?
I mean, I think it's going well. I don't know what everybody else on the panel would think, but I mean, we're only as good as all of us. So because we've grown so much, I feel like we've just got so many awesome people that are really contributing that it feels like I'm not alone in all of this, for sure.
And I think I could speak for everyone at the company that nobody would say Jody is an imposter. So I think we all learned so much from her. And what I love about Jody, what you when you talk to new hires, and particularly when you tell people that story, is you give everybody permission to ask questions and not feel like there's a stupid question, and that we are very much a learning organization, a learning company, and that's been really fantastic. So thank you for that.
To our participants, if anyone wanted to chat in and share a story of when they may have gone through imposter syndrome, if you're open to sharing, feel free, and we also can help navigate and give some advice. All right. How about we move on to another topic? So, I really am all about creating a coalition of women in tech, and kind of to the theme we were just talking about, like, how do we build each other up, give each other advice, feel like we can speak freely about what we're going through, and help each other all be successful. And I look back at like early on in my career, and there's so many things I wish I would have known. I will say I started my career at an automotive supplier, and I worked in a manufacturing plant for 1 year. And then, of course, after that, I transitioned to my career in tech. And I just think back from automotive to tech, two very different cultures. And I just wish I would have had a little more advice about what I should have expected, how to be successful, tools, and really like how to influence also. So I'm wondering if the group here, as all leaders in the tech space, what's one piece of advice that you wish you would have had earlier on in your career and that you would love to give women entering tech? I know there's probably many, but if anyone wants to share a couple piece of advice, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, first off, I recommend finding a mentor in the industry. It doesn't have to be a formal mentor, but someone whom you like to learn from, and hear about their journey and some of the decisions and trade-offs they've made along the way. I think that will be very helpful. And the other quick bit is learn to take constructive feedback well and listen, because the person giving the feedback is taking their time to share some insights. So I think if you can kind of like understand what they're trying to tell you, I think it will benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, I totally echo what Patty just said. Yes, it's a faster way to develop yourself is to look around and find your role models and learn from them. But I do find that there's another really important professional relationship that has been really underutilized by women. That's like a sponsorship. It's almost like a mentorship 2.0. So a sponsor is basically like someone who's willing to take extra steps to use their power and influence to help you, to really support you and advocate for you, and to help you with a career advancement. And I feel that's really valuable. But obviously there's a risk for them. If you fail, their reputation is at risk. So it's really important to know how to go out to build such relationship, build the trust, and convince someone to actually willing to take this risk and to be a powerful ally here. Some advice is like the first one is really, in order to do that, you need to get their attention, right? Go out networking, take additional responsibility, take on some highly visible projects, find an opportunity to get really close to the sponsor you want to talk to. Really speak up. Don't be afraid. Like, use your voice, raise your hand, share what you think, share what you feel. As Jody said, you're there for a reason. There's something you can definitely share. So that's really first step for you to build the healthy relationship. And obviously you want to, the next step is really be ready to talk about your goals and ambitions. You need to be super clear about like what exactly you want to get from this relationship. Obviously you want to show them what value you can bring, what kind of a unique strengths or skills that you can bring to the table to impress them. So basically it's like a selling, almost like you try to convince your potential sponsor that you are a kind of a good investment with great potentials. So study shows that anyone with a sponsorship can climb up much faster in a corporation, but unfortunately a woman is like 50% less than men to seek for a sponsorship in nowadays. So that lack of sponsorship really prevent a woman from advancing to a leadership role. So ladies, my recommendation is to really reach out to build such relationship. It's really rewarding. So this is one thing I want to mention, that like Highnote have 50% of female leaders out there, but most of large company on average, there's only 25% of C-suite executives that are female. So I know that usually a woman tend to seek a female sponsor, but to think about it, like for every one female sponsor, there are like 4 male sponsors out there. So don't limit your selections and diverse your portfolio. I'm pretty sure there are one thing or two we can learn from our male leaders.
Those are, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Jo.
We're going to be very nice. Go ahead. Jean, I love that you and Patty talked about mentors and sponsors. I am so nervous to reach out to people I don't know. And I know that you can do coaching online and there's a ton of services. What I really found is like, you have to push yourself to be a little uncomfortable and reach out to people that you don't know or you haven't talked to in a while. And usually I just put myself out there and say, hey, I know this might be a long shot, or, here's what I'm trying to get out of this. And I signed up at one point early on at Highnote. I signed up for LinkedIn Premium for a free 30 days so I could reach out to people I didn't know, just to be able to have that chance. And I was amazed at the people who responded to me when asking. And it was very uncomfortable, but I just pressed the send button. And so I feel like that I need to take a little bit of my own advice and be a little uncomfortable and start seeking out like some mentors and really take time to invest in my career.
So I love the fact that you're all talking about mentorship and sponsorship, because it is so important, and I am hopeless at it, and I think a lot of us are hopeless at it, and it is really, really important and valuable to get good at. There's another element which ties a little bit to the imposter syndrome, and that's saying yes. It's accepting the stretch goal. It's volunteering for something that maybe you don't feel like you're quite qualified for. Particularly, I've worked almost exclusively in very male-dominated industries, and you're in a pool of people who nine times out of 10, they're men, and they're accepting that thing for which they're not completely qualified for, or they are asking to work on that thing for which they're not completely qualified for. And studies have shown that in general, women will be like, oh, no, I'm not quite there yet. I'm missing, 1 out of 50 requirements, so I'm not gonna go out there. So I think having that, doing that leap of faith, and it's uncomfortable and there's fear involved, but really jumping in and saying I can do it even if you're not sure that you can is also one thing that I would recommend, particularly in the tech environment.
That's great advice. I wish like I had you guys to like talk to me when I was starting out. It was like awesome. I think one more thing I'd add to that is having a growth mindset, right? So things are not always going to go well all the time, right? So what I say to my daughter is like, challenges are opportunities, right? So because you are going to meet challenges for sure, right? But if you look at that as an opportunity and kind of have a positive mindset, I think that is helpful. Another thing I would say is like, ask folks to teach you how to fish instead of just giving you the fish, right? Because I think everyone wants to keep learning, right? And not just be told how to do this one thing, right? Because you want to learn yourself, so you gain knowledge and you keep improving yourself. So those are a couple of things that I would add.
All very great advice. I mean, I think we need to write down like a one pager of what we just talked through. And I think for me personally, I 100% agree with the mentorship. The sponsorship, I think there's a key differentiator in there. So I really appreciate that we talked about that. One thing that I wish I would have known early on is, or I think I wish I would have focused a little bit more on, is building my personal brand from day one and like advocating for myself. Like, I think, of course, mentors can do a great job, but don't forget that the way you get results and the way that you work, you're building a brand throughout your career, and your network is going to follow you, and it's going to lead to different job opportunities. It could lead to board opportunities. They could be great referrals that you bring them to your company. And I just think it's so important that throughout your career, like, you build the brand that you want to be known for. And mine happened naturally, I think, throughout my career. And I realized a couple of years in, like, what my brand is that I wanted to be a great partner to other people. Like, I wanted everyone to say, I want to work with Katie, and like, she knows how to get things done, and we'll partner super well together. And so I just want to remind all the females out there, like, don't forget to advocate for yourself, build your brand. Like, it's going to follow you. And, promote your work sometimes. Sometimes you have to promote it yourself. Sometimes you have to bring leaders in as allies to be aware of your impact. So I wanted to add that in, and I'd be curious to know what the group thinks of that advice.
I think it's great advice. Again, I'm like probably a day late and a dollar short on building my brand, but I think I wish I had known for sure about building brand. I think I was probably one of those people who believed that my work would speak for itself and I would be noticed, and the world would be a fabulous place if that's actually what happened, but it often doesn't. And I think being cognizant of the brand that you're building, and focusing on it and building your network and prioritizing that is, it's a skill, and B, it is really important, and C, it's hard. So.
All right, let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about Highnote more specifically. So I feel lucky that I've been joined by, of course, our female leadership team here. And we have 3 core values at Highnote. So 1 is customer obsession, 2 is executional excellence, and 3 is intentional inclusion. So the one that I do want to highlight today is all about intentional inclusion. And what is that, you may ask? So intentional inclusion is really about creating and cultivating a trusting environment where everyone feels that they have a voice, an opinion, and that what they bring to the table matters. And as Highnote leaders, I'd love to hear from all of you. How do you make sure that you bring intentional inclusion to life with your team? And that it's really all about like how you do work at Highnote and making sure that it's at the forefront of the Highnote culture.
So I know we're not supposed to have a favorite value, but if we did have a favorite value, I think intentional inclusion might be mine. And it's the intentional part, as you said, like it's the intentional part of the intentional inclusion that I think is so important. And where the position I take and what I think about is we're all different people, right? And we all need different things to show up as our best selves. And a lot of that is around being in a trusted and a safe environment, and being able to not worry about things, and being able to deliver our best work. And so when I think about intentional inclusion, and I think about how it manifests itself at Highnote, it's really around acknowledging all different kinds of people. It's not just about ethnic diversity or other kinds of diversity. It's also about introverts and extroverts and different work styles. And one of the things that I always try and do is read the room, read my team and understand and get to know how they respond, and make it so that we don't have teams that need to adapt their styles for the leader, but we have leaders who adapt their styles so that the teams can do their best work, right? Because that's really what being a leader is. And as an introvert, I have an epic soft spot for all of the people who will never want to speak up, and have so much to add, and making sure that intentionally reaching out and drawing them out is something that I hold near and dear and think is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I found that, in some cases, like some of the most quiet people in the room sometimes have the best ideas, right?
Yeah.
So definitely if you see that, there's maybe a couple of folks in the meeting that are not speaking up much, like just ask them, hey, so what are your thoughts, right? So definitely intentionally getting their view and their perspective as well. Another thing, I think, Nicola, you touched on this as well. I feel it's super important to kind of double click in this, is creating a safe space so that people feel that they can speak up, right? So that they know that if they have a different opinion, it's okay, right? All different people have different opinions, and actually different opinions are good in my view, because then hopefully you then get different perspectives, and that will lead to, let's say, a better decision, right? So I often ask what I think is a really stupid question, but luckily at Highnote, no one points at me and say that's a stupid question, right? So hopefully that doesn't happen. So yeah, there should be no silly questions. People, I think, in general are coming from a good place, right? So just assume good intention, right? And then be open to I think different viewpoints.
I really like that you guys said that. And I think one of the things I can say that even I try to work on a daily basis is listening to others, right? It's being intentional and including others. Sometimes, like for me, is stopping and listening and make sure I hear those people and assume the best intentions, and I'm thinking through their lens. And I think that's so important as we have stress from a startup and we have so much going on. And being able to stop and listen, I think can make all the difference in being able to figure out where that person is coming from, and also where their strengths exist, and where they can really contribute, because they do have a perspective, I think, that really matters.
Yeah, one of the coaching session I have, it was really giving surprise data, like saying during the meeting, 90% of the time people tend to give information and only have a 10% time really listen to what other people say. And when I pay attention to that, I realize, yeah, that's actually the case. Like when we're in the meeting, sometimes we feel like we hate those like really silent time and nobody's talking, and it's really awkward. I'm obligated to jump in, fill in those blanks. But actually, that is not the case. And I realized that if I, stop talking and then really like giving time to people to think it through, I can see some of them really have a high speed, like thinking in their brain, just like Evelyn just mentioned, those quiet people, they're not just being quiet, they're thinking and trying to find the best solution there. And then you give them a chance to express, and you get really a lot of great ideas from them.
90% of the time is giving information. Wow.
I was shocked.
Now that you say it, it makes, it's not that surprising, but I feel like hearing it, it definitely is a little stark. All right, so let's move to some Q&A. I'm going to go through the chat and surface some questions from the group. So please, everyone, feel free to add some additional questions here. Again, nothing's off limits. So the first question is, does anyone on the team here want to talk about dealing with a pregnancy or a newborn or toddler while working at a startup or like very fast-paced environment? Does anyone here have that experience?
So mine was a while ago, so it may not be relevant anymore. I was at a pre-revenue startup that was actually going to be going public when I was pregnant with my first child. And it was incredibly stressful. And it didn't need to be as stressful as it was because there was so much more support for the fact that I was bringing a new life into the world. And I read into the situation something that I think was probably not there. And I hid my pregnancy until I was about 6 months along. And I was traveling still, and until I was probably 5-6 months along, I was traveling overseas. So what I would say is, nothing puts a smile on people's faces like knowing someone's expanding their family. And, and I think I would love to have lots of Highnote babies. So like, I think, if the question came from a Highnote employee, like, nothing makes people smile more than bringing new life into the world. And, what a great reason to not be available. And so it's, that's what I would say. My experience was a while ago. I get that.
Well, I'm looking forward to creating a Highnote onesie.
Exactly. Think about the swag we have for babies. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, Highnote onesies. I love that. Thanks, Nicola, for sharing your experience. All right, so I do realize that we're running a little short on time, but before we close out, I would love for the team to think about, what's one thing you would recommend that we all do to continue to break the bias for women in tech? Or what's something that maybe you'll start doing after, this session, after Women's History Month? Because I can tell you at Highnote, it's not going to stop at the end of March. We already have an event next month where we're going to bring in a thought leader to help the Highnote team understand the power of advocacy, and we're going to do a workshop with everyone. So I'm super excited about that, and really just the future of females at Highnote in general. I have to say, just being at this chat with everyone, I feel so grateful and energized and excited that Highnote is being led by 50% females. Like, to me, that's just makes me so happy, and excited about the future of the company. But I will stop talking. And if the group wants to share, one thing you would recommend or that you'll start doing to break the bias for women in tech, what would it be?
I would say have faith in yourself, be confident. Like in China, I think we did pretty well because we were taught to be we're half of the pillar to support this guy. So we never feel like we're less than any male. So just believe in yourself and be confident and don't let imposter syndrome to get over you. Be out there.
Love that.
So I'm going to go the sponsorship route as opposed to the mentoring route. That's something I'm going to do is to make sure that I am sponsoring. I think I do. I think I try and do that anyway, but I'm going to be more mindful and focused about it.
I like what Jody said about not being shy, asking for help. I think people in general are very supportive, very collaborative. So if you feel stuck, feel free to ask for help, and help will be there.
Yeah, I had something very similar. I was just going to say, you're not alone, right? So if you, everyone here, I think has already said it, if you feel you need help, you need support, reach out. I'm sure there, all of us here, and also probably, other people in your network, they'll be willing to support and help.
I really like that. And some of the time I don't get as much time to do this, but I think making a point to do it is spending more time with people outside of Highnote, talking to them about the opportunities that could be upcoming. Because we're growing so quickly, I feel like that there's advocacy and sponsorship that can happen with people that we may hire 6 months down the road. And so being able to I'm not super big on LinkedIn, but going onto LinkedIn and offering up people just to talk about, where Highnote might be in 6 months and how they might be a part of it, I think is really important. So finding ways to do that for women, finding ways to do that for people that don't look like myself, and making sure that we can find spots for lots of diverse candidates, I think is pretty important to me, and continuing to do that. So.
Thanks, team. So before we sign off, I want to encourage everyone who is at the Fireside Chat to stay in touch with us. Again, connect with us on LinkedIn, follow Highnote. I will say on the career side, we are rapidly growing. We are looking to almost double this year. And it's a very, very exciting journey at Highnote. We're rapidly growing, we're building out a company together, and it's a great growth opportunity for your career. And check us out, highnoteplatform.com/careers. And if anyone has any questions about the session today or just wants to learn more about the Highnote product, feel free to contact us at info@highnoteplatform.com. Of course, on social, we are there on LinkedIn, Twitter. We also have a blog, so check us out there. And first, I just want to thank the Highnote leadership team for joining me today. This was a really special experience for us all to get together and truly talk about breaking the bias. And I'm looking forward to continuing to remove the glass ceiling with all of you, and just feeling grateful to be surrounded by all of you. And I want to thank the participants and everyone here who's joined us for this great conversation. We're looking forward to everyone's feedback.
Great. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day and night. Talk soon.
Thanks.
See ya.